Hey guys, it's Greg Jones with Motorcycle and Powersports News. We are here today in St. Louis, Missouri to talk with Mike Taylor of Taylor Motorsports. And in front of us is this 2016 Kawasaki ZX10 race bike, and it's going to be our ride of the week.
This video is sponsored by Autolite, manufacturers of high-quality spark plugs since 1935. Visit Autolite.com for more information.
Mike, thanks again so much for having us here in the shop today and telling us a little bit of information on this ZX10 that you're doing some work on and some tuning on. But before we dive into the details of the bike, wanted to know a little bit more about your background and all the work that you guys do here at Taylor Motorsports.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of been into power sports my whole life.
Yeah.
Ranging from everything, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, road race, street bikes, everything. I don't really have a preference. I love them all. So, I started my first shop, I guess, about 15-ish years ago.
Okay.
In Kansas City.
Okay.
Always did lots of side work for people, but had my first real shop in Kansas City about 15 years ago.
Gotcha.
Ended up moving back to St. Louis, and I got this shop opened up about 9 years ago.
Very good.
And I've just grown, and the older I got, the more I learned, and just expanded, and I'm never not learning.
Yeah.
I'm always learning something new. Always learning how to do things better. There's just it's exciting just to learn every day.
Yeah.
So it makes me better at my trade, and I like everything about power sports.
Yeah, that's great. So you've been in this shop almost a decade, and I know a lot of the work that you do is tuning based.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Want to talk a little bit about some of the bikes? I know you also do some scooter work too.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess it's been 25 years ago. I worked on vintage Vespas.
Yeah.
And had a lot of fun doing that. I built one of the fastest Vespas in the country, running on nitrous, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
By today's standards, it's not quite as fast as it used to be because there's lots of new parts out. But for its time, it was a pretty neat bike.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I like old two-strokes, but I just like mechanical things. I don't have a preference. I tune everything from Harleys to scooters, dirt bikes, four-wheelers. It doesn't matter.
Awesome.
I do a lot of road race stuff. Just getting people's bikes dialed in. Throttle control's key.
Yeah.
So a lot of new bikes too have lots of restrictions in them. So we pull out those restrictions, get the tuning right, and they're just a night and day difference in the way they drive.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you're a one-man operation, and you do a lot of quality tuning work, and you take it seriously. And we'll get more into that as we're talking about this bike right here.
Definitely quality over quantity.
Yeah.
So it makes it tough sometimes because I have a demand for work, and I just can't get it all done.
Right. So, Mike, you got a 2016 ZX10, and you were telling me that the previous customer rode on the street a decent amount.
He rode on the street, and he track rode it.
Yeah, and now it's getting tuned for a Bonneville event, and event down in Texas as well.
Yeah, he sold it to another customer who is going to take it to the Texas or mile or half mile event at the airport to do top speed runs, and so we're going to go completely through the bike, do all the required maintenance, valve check, all that. I think we're going to redegree the cams to try to get a little more top end power out of it.
Yeah.
But on top of that, we're going to do ceramic wheel bearings. We're going to lower the bike down a little bit, not like a drag bike, but just to get the drag coefficient less.
Right.
Just setting it up completely for high speed runs, which there's a lot more involved in that than you would think because the bike is at top speed for so long. On a straightaway on a road course, you're only on the straightaway for a few seconds.
Right.
Versus, at Bonneville, he could be on a 5-mile run or a 7-mile run, depending on whatever he enters. So there's things to consider as far as, chain and sprocket wear, wheel bearings. The tuning on the bike's going to be different.
Yeah.
Holding it wide open for that amount of time, I need to consider that.
Absolutely.
Luckily, this dyno is capable of letting me do that also. not every dyno can you do top speed runs
right.
for sustained periods of time.
Right.
So
very cool. So Mike, can you talk a little bit about some of the differences between the bike as it is here now versus when it might have been stock? What's kind of been upgraded?
Well, this has obviously a high performance air filter and high performance exhaust, and really that's about it. Kawasaki makes a pretty phenomenal bike right out of the box.
Yeah.
And so does Suzuki and Yamaha. They're all pretty great bikes nowadays. They're so advanced.
Sure.
The biggest thing is restrictions. Off the showroom floor, this bike doesn't go full throttle. So when I go through the ECU and I do the tuning through the ECU, I can unlock 40 horsepower on the top end.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant.
Absolutely.
And so they, just getting them to run the way they were made to run really is kind of my specialty.
Yep.
I know that when I'm done tuning a bike, it's running way more efficient, producing less emissions than when it came to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm tuning it for its environment it's going to belong in,
right.
where most bikes are just tuned for North America.
Yeah.
And so they've got to fit everywhere from Denver to sea level.
Absolutely. And you were telling us earlier that something that you strive to do is tune all the way through the throttle.
I tune complete maps.
Yeah.
From 0 to 100% throttle and everything in between.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people kind of overlook that, as far as it's a lot of work, and so doing that much work, it costs more, and I think some people just opt for the lesser number, but they're not getting the full capabilities of their bike.
Sure.
You get range of throttle is so much better when you tune the whole map. It doesn't matter where you're at in the throttle. If you get on and off, your transition is super smooth.
Right.
And so a lot of the new bikes, they're like light switches. When you just barely touch the throttle, it's on or off, and it makes it very abrupt to ride in the corners, and kind of dangerous on certain bikes, especially something that's making 200 horsepower.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to ask, what kind of horsepower numbers you're going to get out of this bike once you're all done with it versus, when it was stock?
I mean, a horsepower number is relative to the dyno you're on. Every dyno reads different. I know there's another shop in St. Louis that has the same dyno I do, and it doesn't read the same. So I'm not really looking at top numbers on horsepower. I'm looking at the shape of the curve. I'm looking at the response. It's easy to make high numbers, but getting everything through the mid-range gets you to the top end faster, which makes a faster bike overall. And smooth, so if you have to get on and off the throttle, it's not an abrupt change.
Right.
Like at a drag strip, if somebody wheelies off the line and they barely let off the throttle, a stock bike will just drop like a brick. Whereas you do the whole map, then it just slowly comes down or up, and you can modulate that throttle to hover while you're still accelerating.
Right.
So it's, I think it's important to do the entire map. And the only way to do it is on a dyno. You can't mail in a flash and get that.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the upgraded exhaust. You're going to lower the bike a bit, the ceramic bearings. You mentioned some engine work with degreeing the cams and things like that to get it all dialed in.
Yeah, a lot of just basic maintenance too. The valve adjust is something that's scheduled to do now. Whether it needs it, I don't know, but it's something we're going to check. It's about safety too. So I want to make sure everything's completely safe on it to be able to do top speed runs.
Right. So obviously we're teasing the audience about the performance of this bike, and I think Mike is going to hop on the dyno here and give us a demonstration.
Yeah,
so
do a couple pulls.
Mike, we really appreciate your time again for having us stop in the shop and checking out some of the bikes, and specifically this Kawasaki here. And again, want to thank you, and we want to thank all you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next ride. Thanks.